quite a while I wanted to see this movie, but in Germany there were only a handful of screenings, and later, when released on Blu-ray in Japan, there were no subtitles. However, as Godzilla Minus One is now on Netflix, I finally got to see it. Hi there, it's Micha. I know everybody and their dog already reviewed this film, but I still want to share my 2 cents. And I will at least try to keep it short. Kind of. So join me if you like to get my take on it. Close to the end of World War II, with Japan being all but defeated, young kamikaze pilot Keiichirō pretends his plane is malfunctioning to, well, stay alive, and lands on an island for repairs. There, Godzilla makes his first appearance, and due to Keiichirō freezing while facing the creature, everybody except himself and the lead mechanic die. With a guilty conscience, he returns home, where his parents are dead and the house lies in ruins. It also doesn't help that the neighbors are blaming him too for losing the war. However, soon after, Noriko, a young woman, literally runs into him after she stole some food and hands him her baby in passing. He later finds out that this is not Noriko's child, but an orphan just like her, and him for that matter. So they form some kind of a family unit taking care of a little girl. Soon Keiichirō finds a well-paying but dangerous job: sweeping mines at sea. Making new friends with the ship's crew. Over time they rebuild the house and normality slowly returns. But this is when also Godzilla resurfaces at sea, having grown to gigantic proportions. And Keiichirō and the other minesweepers are tasked with stopping the monster that is on a direct path to Tokyo. Will they be successful? Let's stop the synopsis here, because I don't want to spoil the coming twists and turns. But I will share details in the spoiler zone at the end of the video, so stay with me if you like to find out more. I really liked this movie because it really has some great strengths, especially when compared to Legendary's American reboot from 2014. In both movies, the monster was not the main attraction. But while here it was more for budgetary constraints, in the US version it was just a weird choice. There we also follow a soldier through the plot, but there that was a hero character without much profile, and I frankly remember nothing from his journey. And I think there was not much worth remembering. The main character was pretty much replaceable. In Godzilla Minus One though, we have a lead character that is much more interesting and more relatable, because it is a real human being. Someone who didn't want to die, who hesitated in the face of fear and is haunted by it. He tries to redeem himself by caring for others but never really letting them in, feeling not worth of anything good coming his way. That is the big strength of this movie. Interesting characters you don't mind to spend time with, which makes you not miss seeing Godzilla. Though a bit more of the monster that only returned about an hour later wouldn't have hurt. But there was just not enough money to have the kaiju showing up more often. And here is the second strength. The effects are used very efficiently, only when needed. The effects team clearly knew when to place an effect and didn't waste any money on bogus shots. They even clearly reused some effects like Godzilla walking slowly around, but did it cleverly enough not to be too obvious. This all noticeably resulted in the movie winning an Oscar for their special effects, and deservedly so. What also makes the story interesting is it mostly taking place right after the war ended and what that time meant for the Japanese people. All that devastation. Something that wasn't much addressed in movies before. While Godzilla used to be a metaphor for the nuclear threat, it is telling that the bombs were not even mentioned in this movie, as the Kaiju is now a stand-in for the post-war period, which even shows in the meaning of the title, Godzilla Minus One. The country was already at zero, but then a monster comes along to make things even worse. Of course, there is more than just one interpretation for the title, like the fact that the movie takes place even before the events of the 1954 original. And I never knew that the Japanese people were basically left to their own devices in those early years, not receiving help from the US military, so not to provoke the Russians, but also not allowed to rebuild their own military yet. A truly difficult situation. In this film, this resulted in the citizens taking matters into their own hands, without any other choice, having to face the creature utilizing whatever means necessary. The charge was spearheaded by former military veterans, which is quite logical as they have the most experience. However, that plotline resulted in some backlash from critics for writer-director Takashi Yamazaki, as his filmography apparently contains much pro-military messaging, to which I can't comment, but watching the movie without that knowledge, I didn't get that feeling. At the very least, the movie makes it crystal clear that killing yourself in a kamikaze way is nothing desirable, and the same is true for war in general. And with that being said, let's get to the rating. Basically, everyone agrees that this is the best Godzilla entry in quite a while, maybe the best so far, and I concur. It surely beats the convoluted yet somewhat entertaining stuff Warner is pumping out in their Monsterverse. Though, to be fair, I haven't watched the newest one, Godzilla x Kong, yet, so I can't compare them. Here the actors are doing a great job to engage us with human struggles that actually interest us, and the visuals are supporting this. I didn't mind that the kaiju was not omnipresent, though another appearance during the first hour would have been nice. And budget restraints or no, this will slightly impact my rating. Just slightly though, as most things were done very well, some almost perfectly. Therefore my score for this movie is 8.5 out of 10 points. There are some minor plot issues of which most get rectified along the way, but more on that in a second. Because now, if you don't want to get spoiled, please leave. But if you don't mind spoilers or have already watched the movie, then follow me into the spoiler zone. The first big twist is that Koichi, after years of self-hate, finally realized that he can be forgiven, that he has a reason to live, and that he is in love with Noriko, just when Godzilla returns and she apparently dies. In a Titanic resembling moment though, where you ask yourself, she could have saved both of them if she also jumped into the alley, so why didn't she? And the force with which she was hit made it clear that she was gone. That was not just upsetting for us viewers, having me teared up, but also put Koichi on a self-destruction course, willing to kill himself kamikaze style with a plane that was meant to distract Godzilla. Which reminds me, why are kids in Japanese movies not crying in a normal way but always go to full-on ugly desperation crying? I have seen that in other movies too, and it happened at least twice in this one, which was a bit of a detractor for me. If that is a cultural thing and you know more, please share in the comments. Anyway, in another twist, Koichi then kills the monster with a plane, apparently, but he used the ejector seat instead and survives, which further highlighted the positive message of the movie. A decision inspired by him realizing that his adoptive daughter still needs him, and by receiving forgiveness from the surviving pilot from the film's beginning, who he brought in to get the plane fit to fly. That twist, by the way, was spoiled for me. As being German, I could clearly read the word Schleudersitz, which means ejector seat on the pilot's chair, so no surprise there. The next twist, which was also foreshadowed by a telegram arriving, was the fact that Noriko is still alive, which, even though quite unlikely, was very welcome and got me teared up again, rectifying the prior disappointment over her death. The movie ends with that reveal, but also shows us that she apparently has a particle of Godzilla stuck in her neck, and we see that Godzilla starts to regenerate again, having survived as well. Let's talk about this ending. For a second there I was disappointed because I thought that the particle in her likely means she will mutate, which would take away the happy end we just got, which many people online seems to also suspect. However, I come to believe that this is not the case. First off, the particle was very likely the reason she survived in the first place, giving her regenerative powers as well, which makes the plot more plausible. As Godzilla always inevitably turns from a malevolent force into the benevolent protector we know from most franchise entries, my guess is that Noriko will have some kind of a psychic connection with the kaiju, being able to call on it when they need help. I decided that for me that is the truth, and that way the film ended on an even more positive note. And on this notion, I'm ending this review. What about you? Did you also enjoy the human element in this movie more than in other franchise entries? What is your take on the ending? Do you agree with my interpretation? Whatever you like to share, let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, share or subscribe. So much for now, see you next time and thanks for watching. I know everybody and their dog already reviewed this film, but I still want to share my 2 cents. Young kamikaze pilot Koichi pretends his while Godzilla used to be a metaphor for the nuclear threat